Now, even if you're not that clued up on your cars, you're probably not going to need much of an introduction to this one. It is, of course, the Range Rover Sport, and I'm betting you haven't done many journeys over the last 5 or 6 years where you haven't seen at least one of these. And the reason for that is because it's an absolutely massive seller. Believe it or not, Land Rover sold more of these in the UK last year than Volkswagen sold Passats, and that's despite prices starting at around about £65,000, although you can save quite a bit of money on that at the moment over at the new car buying section of our website whatcar.com. So make sure you get a quote if you're looking to buy one of these or in fact any other new car. In this in-depth review, we're going to be finding out what the Range Rover Sport is like to sit in, live with, and of course what it's like to drive, both on and off-road. But before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and that you've switched on notifications by clicking on the bell icon below, because if you don't do that, we can't let you know about some really exciting videos we've got lined up over the next few weeks. Right, so let's start by having a look around the outside, because let's face it, it's the way this car looks that makes it such a massive seller. And whichever version you go for, you're certainly not going to have to worry about blending into the background. But that said, you can choose from a slightly more conservative look by going for entry-level HST trim right up to full-on bling for the range-topping V8 powered SVR. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. This version, well, it's somewhere in the middle really. It's called an HST. It's a new trim level for 2019 and it's only available with a straight 6 3-litre petrol engine. Now the HST also gets some carbon fibre bits up here on the bonnet, around the side vents here, on the front grille, and there's a little bit more round on the boot lid as well. The HST comes with 21-inch alloys. This particular car actually has optional 22-inch wheels. They're the biggest that you can get on the Range Rover Sport, and they cost about £1,600. This paint colour is called Forensi Red. That's also an option. It costs £850, and it's one of 5 colours that you can have on the HST model, although there is a bigger palette to choose from if you go for some of the other trim levels. But we want to know, what do you think? Is this the best looking Range Rover on sale today? Or do you think that the latest Evoque, the Velar, or even the full-size Range Rover has it pipped in the style department? Let us know by voting in our poll. And when you're done watching this video, remember that we have full video reviews of all of those models I've just mentioned as well. Next up, we're going to have a look in here, because in a recent poll we did, interior quality came up as the #1 priority for luxury SUV buyers. And certainly when it comes to making you feel special, you're not going to be disappointed in here at all. There is leather pretty much everywhere you look, on top of the doors here, top of the dashboard, and of course the seats, and even the bits that aren't trimmed in hide, like this metal effect here on the center console, feel pretty upmarket as well. Now this color, not going to be everyone's cup of, well, Ribena by the looks of things. It's called Pimento, and it's a no-cost option on some of the trim levels, including this HST. Although, mercifully, you can also have other colours, including cream, dark brown, tan, and even if you prefer, just plain old dark grey. In terms of how well everything feels put together, it's pretty good actually. It's not quite up there with the likes of the Audi Q7 or the BMW X7, but you have to do things like this to really notice, and normal people don't do that very often. The driving position, well, that's pretty much perfect. It's one of the best things about the Range Rover Sport, and you get a great view down the road ahead, but also diagonally out of junctions and roundabouts thanks to these tall side windows here. Now, obviously this is a big car, it's nearly 5 meters long, so it's not the easiest thing in the world to park, but all models do come with front and rear parking sensors as standard, and you also get a reversing camera that's displayed here on this touchscreen. And that brings me on to the infotainment system now. It was updated about a year or so ago, so it's pretty much the same system that you get in the Velar. And that means it measures 10 inches across, and you've got some really clever features like the ability to adjust the angle of the screen here. And you also get plenty of gadgets as well, including Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, a Wi-Fi hotspot, and on some of the posher trim levels, including this HST model, a Meridian surround sound system. Now the touchscreen itself is a little bit fiddly to use, partly because some of these icons down here are quite small, but also because doing some things like adjusting the radio station, for example, is a little bit more of a faff than it really should be. The screen can also be quite slow to react to presses, almost like you're trying to run the latest Apple software on a 5-year-old iPhone. So overall, the BMW X5 and X7 and even Audi Q7 have better infotainment systems that are just less distracting to use, particularly while you're driving. You can find more about those infotainment systems on those rival cars by watching our video reviews, and there's a link up there at the top of the screen right now for the one on the Audi Q7. Now you can pay extra to have a digital TV in the front And particularly if you've got kids in the back here, you can have 8 or 10-inch screens on the back of the front headrests here. Now, it's not exactly surprising there's loads of room in the back here. This is a pretty big car after all, and you can even adjust the angle of the backrest, so if you fancy a snooze, that's quite convenient. This HST model and some of the more powerful engines, including the P400 plug-in model, are 5-seaters only, but for about £1,600 on some of the other trim levels, you can have an extra couple of seats in the back. But I will warn you, they're pretty cramped, so if you need to carry more than 5 people and anything other than emergencies, you would be better off going for a proper 7-seat SUV like an Audi Q7, a Volvo XC90, or if you want to keep it in the Land Rover family, a Discovery. The Sport does have a pretty decent boot though. You're certainly not going to struggle to fit a couple of buggies in there, a few suitcases, or indeed a set of these. And it's also pretty handy that there's no lip at the boot entrance. You can also, of course, fold down the rear seats when you need to carry even more. And another feature I really like is this button here, because what that does is allows the Sport to squat down on its standard air suspension. And that makes it a little bit easier to load in heavy items. Now, we've just been talking about the air suspension that all versions of the Range Rover Sport, apart from the range-topping SVR, come with as standard, and usually this type of suspension gives a really smooth ride. Now, as I've already said, this car does have 22-inch alloys. They're the biggest that you can have on the Range Rover Sport. They certainly don't help matters, but even if you stick with smaller wheels, this isn't quite as comfortable a car as you might be hoping, certainly not compared with the likes of the Audi Q7 or the BMW X7, for example. Ah, but you're thinking that's because the Range Rover Sport is sporty, right? After all, the clue's in the name. Well, not really. I suppose compared with something like a Land Rover Discovery, then yeah, it is quite sporty, but then so's the London Taxi. Compared with something like a Porsche Cayenne or even a BMW X5, then it's not really at all. It just feels heavier and less willing to change direction. That said, it's not at all unpleasant to drive, and actually the steering's really quite nice. It's both well judged for weighting, and it's also pretty accurate, so you're certainly not going to have any complaints there. The range-topping SVR is a bit lighter on its toes. It has its own bespoke suspension that helps it stay a bit more upright when you're cornering hard, but it's still a 2.5-ton beast, and it doesn't disguise that weight or its height as cleverly as the best German rivals. What it does do though is sound absolutely fantastic. Its 5-litre supercharged V8 engine spits and pops when you're just pottering around, and it really roars when you rev it hard. Unsurprisingly, it's by far the fastest version of the Sport you can buy, but it's also the most expensive and it drinks the most fuel. If you're after a petrol, this new P400 straight 6 makes more sense, and it's still pretty quick, but we reckon the most sensible petrol option is the P400E. That's a plug-in hybrid, so it has a 2-litre petrol engine, but also an electric motor, and it'll do around about 20 miles of pure electric driving. Even after you've run out of battery power, it'll still be pretty economical as long as you drive it gently. Officially, it also pumps out just 69 grams of CO2 every kilometre, quite a lot less than a Ford Fiesta, and that means it qualifies for a really low rate of company car tax, and it's exempt from the London congestion charge. So it's hardly surprising that around half of Range Rover Sport buyers within the M25 choose this model. But if you're not going to take advantage of those tax perks and you don't have a driveway to charge the battery up at home, we reckon you're actually better off with the entry-level SD V6 diesel. It still has more than 300 brake horsepower, so it's pretty quick. It's the most economical engine on long motorway journeys, and it's also quite a smooth engine as well. Although if you want a really smooth and quiet luxury SUV, you would still be better off with an Audi Q7 or a BMW X7. Neither of those rivals is anywhere near as good at this though. Now, admittedly, you're probably not going to take your brand new £60,000 Range Rover Sport, or over £80,000 if you've gone for this HST model, extreme off-roading, but believe me, it's not even breaking sweat here. I've got a low-range gearbox for getting up steep inclines, hill descent control for getting back down the other side again, and something called all-terrain progress control. That's basically cruise control for off-roading, and I can wade in up to 850 millimetres of water. That's pretty much waist height and far deeper than any rival can manage. But here are 5 more things you'll want to know about the Range Rover Sport if you're thinking about buying one. Even though the Sport has been on sale since 2013, it's still one of the slowest depreciating luxury SUVs. So although it costs a bit more than some rivals to buy, you will at least get a lot of that cash back when you come to sell. If you plan on towing, the Sport can pull a brake trailer weighing up to 3.5 tons, and to do that you'll need this electrically deployable tow bar, which costs around about £1,000. For another 180 you can also add something called Advanced Tow Assist, and that helps out with reversing. If you've got young kids, it's worth noting that the Range Rover Sport has just 2 Isofix mounts, one here on each of the outer rear seats. An Audi Q7, well, that has 6 mounts. There are 3 different types of headlights available on the Range Rover Sport. You've got the basic matrix versions, and then for £615 you've got the pixel LED versions. They're fitted to this car. And then right at the top of the range for £1,600 you've got the pixel laser LED lights, and they have 144 LEDs and 4 lasers, and they can shine up to half a kilometre down the road. You might be getting to know your local Land Rover dealer pretty well if you buy one of these, because I won't dress it up, Land Rover has a terrible reputation for reliability and actually finished rock bottom of our most recent reliability survey. On the plus side, the Range Rover Sport was actually the least unreliable Range Rover model in the survey. So overall, although the Range Rover Sport is no longer our favourite luxury SUV, there are still plenty of reasons to think about buying one. But for lots more information, head over to our website whatcar.com, where you'll find our detailed written review. That's about it, so thanks for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video then hit the thumbs up and leave us a comment if there's anything else you'd like to know about the Range Rover Sport or any other car. We'll see you next time.